about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. So before we begin this next hour, I wanted to kind of bring up something that I think is really relative to life. And I know some of you guys are going to get mad, that I'm bringing this up, but I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. Woohoo, yay! Have at them Cowboys. And I've always loved the Cowboys, but they're in a 30-year kind of slump. I don't think they've won a Super Bowl in nearly 30 years. Over 30 years now? No, 30 years? Yeah, and I watched America's Dream. It was a Netflix show. Let me see, what was it called? It was America's Dream, yeah, The Gambler and Cowboys. And so it talked about the Cowboys' legacy and Jerry Jones and some of his decisions. And I'm glad, actually, shut my volume off there. I'm glad I watched it because I've been very frustrated with Jerry Jones. I think a lot of people are. But there's a lot of life lessons that we pick up seeing these docuseries on people's rise and fall. Now, I knew what was going on with the Cowboys kind of superficially during the 90s. The 90s was one of their huge legacy years. I mean, you got the Roger Staubach era, but then you have the 90s, the Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith and Marv Irwin and Deion Sanders and gosh, I don't want to forget anybody. Emmitt Smith, they were just all. But anyway, you had the dream team. I was in school. I was an undergrad, and then I was in college, and so I always worked Sunday, so I never really had time to watch. I only got bits and pieces, and I knew Troy Aikman was pretty good. I knew Emmitt Smith was awesome, but this show reminded me of a lot because when I talk about the Cowboys with my friends, now I remember some of the stuff in the 90s, but it's a blur, and this kind of reinvigorated and kind of reminded you, like the Herschel Walker trade. Well, basically what happened in essence, Jerry Jones decides to buy. He was a risk taker himself. I don't think he was born rich. I think his dad owned a shop and they lived on the top floor of that little store or on the second floor. And so he was a Razorback, I believe. He played, I forget which position in college football. So he played college football with Jimmy Johnson, who was one of his best buddies. And then he ended up making some real estate investments. He kept borrowing money. And apparently he said he was in so much debt that his wife was worried and calls, her father. So now the father-in-law is getting involved. Like, what's going on here? But then I guess he invests in oil rigs. And according to the story, one hits. And he makes $100 million. And he says, I'm going to buy a football team. He had originally wanted to buy the Chargers, I think when he was only 28 years old, and he went to the Teamsters for loans, and he met Jimmy Hoffa, and his father was like, you're not going to be, working with Jimmy Hoffa and the mob. That's not a good idea. And so he ended up not buying the Chargers, and it got sold to the Klein Group. That's neither here nor there. But what's interesting is the fact that you would be in debt and you would keep borrowing. See, I'm not a risk taker. I don't double down. I don't do that because I usually lose. Well, he won. I mean, he hit his rig struck oil and he made a lot of money. But it was interesting where he had that gumption, those guts, that grit to keep going. So then he ends up buying the Dallas Cowboy football team, and he buys the team that was at their loss. Sometimes you want to buy at the low price, just like with stocks. You want to buy it low, but you want to make sure it's not going to be a failure. And so one of the best players they had was Herschel Walker. They decided to trade Herschel Walker. They're the best player they had. I think they traded him to the Vikings. That allowed them to get 5 players and multiple draft picks, and that's how they get Emmitt Smith. And that's how they start getting some of their other players. And they basically shake it all up. They end up drafting Troy Aikman. They draft their team, and then they end up getting, especially under Jimmy Johnson, then 2 Super Bowl wins. Then Jerry decides to fire Jimmy Johnson. There's the fights and there's the, who gets credit for what. And then they go through a whole bunch of coaches. And now we're at the point where the Cowboys are very, very micromanaged by their owner, because even though the owner might have made a good move with that, Herschel Walker trade, he is still, many people feel he's in the way. And I'm not here to talk football, but this idea of going 2 steps forward because you took 1 step back is very common in life, whether it's health or not. Like, you need to cut to heal. Now, if I'm having a bad appendix, you got to take it out. And sometimes that means cutting you open. And in medicine, we always cut to heal, or we understand that sometimes a treatment, might necessarily, I don't want to say hurt, but cause a regression in, shall we say, the body's processes, because we know it's going to heal. So, for example, let's say you have a really bad wound and you never got stitches. And so the wound now didn't heal right, and you have some poorly healing tissue. We might debride and clean out that poorly healed tissue just so then the new tissue could grow. It's this, 2 steps forward, 1 step back sort of idea. And that's what I gleaned from this, America's Team Netflix series. They sometimes you might want to hold on to something. Go, well, I think it's valuable. And sometimes you might just need to, like, let's say you're living in a house that you don't need. It's 3,500 square feet, and you don't need that. And you might be able to get ahead if you sell it, go to something smaller. And we forget to do that because we think we always have to move forward. We always have to gain. We have to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and not necessarily. Now, the idea of micromanaging, that's another big lesson. Now, I understand Jerry Jones has some football experience. He played, but that's not what he does. As a doctor, I'm a family doctor, so I know a lot about everything. I know a lot about OB. I know a lot about geriatrics. I know a lot about pediatrics. But if I need a specialist, I got to take a step back and let that person do their job. And that's also hard to do. When you look at your family dynamic, you'll have some people in the family where they have talents and they have some gifts. And I'm starting to learn that even with my family, even though I'm mommy. Okay, mommy's, been in charge, with the kids and things like that. Sometimes, give the kids their job, their roles, their responsibilities. And then that allows you to rest, gear up, and fix what they mess up. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, don't go away. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So everywhere I go, I smell pot. I mean, it's just, it's being used ubiquitously. I wish it smelled better. But, yeah, everywhere I go, it just stinks. I mean, you smell it. That's what I think I actually liked about Colorado, is even though Colorado was one of the first states to legalize marijuana, you're outside, you're hiking, you're mountain climbing, you're not, and so you get some fresh air. But when you're in the city, and whether it's Vegas, New York, L.A., you just smell it. You go to a hotel room or a motel room, and it just reeks of it. And it's frustrating that this is where we are today, where, legalizing marijuana, which is something I supported, so people had access to something for pain, because we knew that pain medications were going to start getting limited because they were blaming the fentanyl crisis on doctors and not the cartels and drug use and nefarious groups that are, drug dealers. But I wanted that. I wanted it available for those who needed it. I also wanted us to study it so we could see where the medicinal health applications are, and hard to study something that's class Schedule 1 and illegal in many states. And then I also wanted the police freed up so they didn't have to be sitting there pulling people over, for small amounts of marijuana. They could, deal with the more aggressive and more violent crimes. So, yeah, I voted to legalize it. What I didn't think was going to happen is the degree of people driving under the influence, kids in high school, middle school, having access to it, people dropping out of school, not wanting to go to work. We have a big dearth of commercial truck drivers. I hear the media outlets going, why were we giving CDLs to illegal aliens and illegal migrants here? Because I'm not saying this is an excuse, but if somebody smokes marijuana or uses marijuana, they can't get a commercial driver's license. So that pool of young, strapping individuals who want to, be the backbone of America and drive trucks started to shrink. So we were questioning the safety of marijuana and driving. And I remember initial studies coming out of Colorado going, no, we really aren't seeing an uptick. I'm like, really? Yeah, I read there are more marijuana-related car accidents. No, we're not seeing it. It's safe. Well, no. I'm watching people, get into their car. You're seeing them smoke in the parking lot and then getting into their car. And I had even suggested maybe before, it's one thing to legalize it, but maybe before we, mass, allow it and give certain people licenses so they could sell it and keep them open during the pandemic, let's at least make sure our cops have a way to do a breathalyzer or to do a test to, ensure that they aren't DUIing. And we're just not there yet. And still, here we are in 2025 with individuals getting behind the wheel. And many individuals who use marijuana products, whether they smoke them, they eat them, like in terms of edibles or baked goods, they don't feel high. Just like those who drink alcohol, they're like, I'm good. And you're looking at them going, you're stammering your speech, you're not standing still. No, you're not good. Well, we have a study coming out of Ohio looking at the growing number of marijuana users who are driving while high. And they say 40% of victims of fatal vehicle accidents over the past 6 years have had elevated levels of THC in their blood. The drug screenings were performed during the autopsy process. As you know, THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, is the psychoactive compound of the cannabis plant. That's what makes you feel euphoric, giggly, whatever. And the Wright State University-led study was, this has been reported by Fox News, and this was published in the Journal of American College of Surgeons, looked at 246 dead drivers. The researchers found that 42% of them tested positive for THC, average blood level of 30.7 nanograms per milliliter, which is a high amount. Those levels remained high over a 6-year period, despite the state recently legalizing recreational cannabis. They said the levels found in the study were far higher than the legal limit. The legal limit is 2 nanograms, not 30. Colorado, Washington, Nevada, the legal limit is 5 nanograms. So, we're seeing more and more individuals that are, not caring. They're using marijuana for a variety of reasons. One recreational, one, for sleep, one for medicinal purposes. But we're not informing people that, it's not just about drunk driving. Your marijuana can get, picked up. That can be used as evidence, and you can go to jail for a long time if you are under the influence. But people don't seem to care. I told you I was speaking at a high school, local high school. And one of the kids, one of the teenagers raises her hand and says, how do I get my parents to stop smoking pot while they're driving me to school? The car fills up with smoke, and I smell a pot when I come to school. Now, does she smoke pot? And she was trying to use that as a way to say, well, blame it on my parents. But I looked at the teacher, and like this, we got to get a hold of the parents. We got to look at this. And she said she's going to take care of it. But if parents are driving their kids to school smoking dope, this is dangerous stuff. Not to mention, these kids don't want to breathe this stuff in. The pesticides, the contaminants, the metals. And so, many people feel that if they eat an edible, then it's okay because they're not smoking it. And they're not necessarily feeling as much of a high as they might with, no, it all can put you under the influence. And in fact, marijuana these days is a lot more potent. This isn't your grandfather's dope. This is a lot more potent because people got used to it. They got used to it. And in order for there to be a market and competition, somebody had to sell it stronger than another person's product. So the stuff on the market's pretty strong. And we see this in the medical realm of people having psychosis, people having severe nausea. Somebody will be having cyclical vomiting or very severe vomiting. We call it cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. Hyperemesis is multiple vomiting episodes. And I'll ask them, I go, have you used marijuana recently? And they said, yes, to control the nausea. I'm like, well, how often are you using it? Well, I'm using it a few times a day because I'm really nauseous. Well, it's building up. Another thing about marijuana is the half-life of marijuana is a lot longer. Marijuana could be in your system for days, weeks. You could pick it up on a drug test sometimes a month later, as opposed to alcohol. But people, the word's not getting out. Once something is legal, people think, okay, well, then it's good, or it's healthy, or it's. And there was a child that was killed. She was in the backseat of a car because somebody high on dope ran. I think all he had in his system was marijuana. Rams the car, kills the daughter in the back seat. So, well, we got some work out, to cut out for us. Marijuana can dull our senses, affect our coordination, make us less astute as it pertains to rules, and it when you don't have those reflexes you need. I mean, I drive in Southern Nevada, so we have 3 main highways, and we kind of make fun of the highways where the I-15, is usually always busy and crowded like an LA highway. So you just sit there and you go maybe 5 miles an hour. You have the 95 that also gets blocked up, but you're able to still speed, but people don't follow the rules. And then you got the 215, which kind of circles the city. And we look at it like a racetrack. And I got to tell you, I see people drive on that sucker. And I smell pot. Now the 215 is in a non-congested area of the city. It's out there in the desert. And for me to smell pot, not with my window closed, coming in through the car's filter system, means that potency of that car that just sped by me had to have been really, really high. And some people will say, but Dr. Daliah, I can identify a marijuana smoker on the road because they drive really, really slow. Some of them will also drive fast. As much as we would like to simplify things, saying, well, somebody on alcohol is going to swerve, whereas somebody with marijuana is going to be driving paranoid, and not entirely, because there's different strains. Some of the strains of marijuana are more stimulating, some are more relaxing, but these falling asleep at the wheel, is it somebody who's sleep deprived? Is it somebody who had a stroke? Or is it somebody who, has too much cannabis in their system? And also, people who use marijuana may not understand that it's additive and cumulative. So whatever you're getting in your system today is going to still be there tomorrow, still be there Friday, still be there next Monday. So as you're adding more, you're having a higher blood content and tissue content. So quit driving stoned. We really need to be able to test a lot easier than we do. And just stop the crap. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret.
Powered by science.
DOC-DALIAH, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So have any of you guys ever gotten your car or truck towed? I haven't. I have been very, very lucky my whole life. But it happened to my son this weekend, and it sucked. And I think there's a lot of scams and predatory behavior out there that I want to warn you all about. So, because I think they lay in waiting, and then as soon as they think you are in violation, they grab your car, go, and then they hold it hostage. And so this weekend was the Renaissance Fair in Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, the Renaissance Fair has been something I love going to, but I think this might be the last time I go to it. Because you used to be able to find parking. There'd be a lot you could park on, and even though I could use my media pass, if I'm coming with family and all that, I don't necessarily go, oh, I'm media. I'm sure I could, but because I cover it and I promote it and that kind of stuff. But this time around, they wanted to shunt people to another lot that was far away, and then use shuttle buses. Well, the problem with that for me is if I have to go to the bathroom, right? Not only are you waiting in line to get on a shuttle bus, but then you're waiting in line to get on one to leave the event, and it could add an extra few hours to the event. Remember I told you guys I wanted to go to the Nellis Air Force Base Air Show, and the shuttle line, we were in line for 2 hours, and I'm like, I just can't, just to get onto a bus. We weren't sure what was going on with the buses, and so, for me, I just don't have all day to spend. So my son was with his girlfriend, and they're like, well, we're going to go get something to eat, and then we'll meet you. So they parked across the street to go get something to eat. And then they were going to come and meet us. Well, we were there for about an hour or so, and it was cool. I posted some pictures. It was great. I got to see a camel and have them, camel wanted to lick whatever salt was on my hand. I don't know what the camel was doing. And it was pretty cool. Ooh, and then the the Gondor sword from Lord of the Rings before it broke into pieces. That was really, really cool. I love the Renaissance Fair. It's really, really cool. But we're like, look, we'll drive you back to your car. So we drove them back to the car. The car is gone. Even though they were there in the parking lot to go eat, the car's gone. And it wasn't even covered parking. There was like no sign. So we thought the car got stolen. So then for poops and giggles, we're like, well, I wonder if it got towed. So we're driving around for about 5 minutes to try to see, is there a possible tow sign? Because how do you know where the car is? If somebody towed it, who's the towing company? Where does it go? Well, behind some bushes, there was a sign. So we called it, and they go, yeah, we have your car. And, we weren't really at the Renaissance Fair that long. And I'm like, well, I bet they're still on the road. Where is it? Well, it was about, I don't know, maybe 12, 13 miles away, the tow company. So I'm like, I bet we could even catch them on the road. But so we start to go down there, and we get to the tow truck company. You start to see all these people in Renaissance Fair clothes walk into this tow company. We're thinking to ourselves, look, this is going to be a good couple $100. Just prepare. Towing fees are not good. It cost $580 to get his car back. Why? Well, the basic towing fee was $360, but because it was a weekend night, they slapped on more money. They said like an extra 100, 150. Then they charged per mile that they had to drive the car, $17 per mile. And then on top of that, they added some extra BS fee. I forget what they said. Oh, because it was a special event, and so by the time people got out of their $580, now the average person doesn't have that money in their wallet. They don't have it in their bank account, and you saw the worry these people had, and you heard people go, but I was only there for a few minutes. I was only there. Well, that's kind of what happens. I mean, if you park at a place you're not supposed to park, you get towed. But we calculated based on the time, they must have been just right there sitting to catch. And I've been hearing about these tow truck scams. And I live in a place that always had free parking, always had, usually, I mean, we got the coolest, I live in Southern Nevada. All there is land. All there are is fields and desert. But these tow truck companies know how to make money. And so adding extra fees because they can, there's no way to fight it. So $580 for them having our car for 5 minutes. Not cool. Not cool at all. And, many individuals that don't have that kind of money, that you struggle. And so one thing that I'm really, kind of grumpy with and salty about is, we have such amazing sports events and hockey and all that, but we get scammed on the parking and the pricing. And so if you don't want to spend, I think I wanted to go to a Golden Knights game, and parking was $45. So on top of your ticket, which is now getting high priced, on top of that, we had to pay an extra $45. And that's actually good. I'm hearing that some parking is more. Why? Well, because these companies can charge for it. They can charge for it. So people are paying it. And if you're trying to find another place to go and you don't see a tow sign, well, that you could be really, really screwed. So I think the key is to just Uber or Lyft where you're going to go. But that could cost about $40, $50, depending on where you are. And it's frustrating because I don't want to be the one to say I'm not going to go somewhere because of parking or because I don't want to get towed. I remember hearing my grandparents talk like that. I'm like, why would you miss an event because you're worried about something that's not going to happen? Yeah, I mean, I get if you're worried about a mass shooter, but you're worried about getting towed. Well, now I am frightened to park anywhere. And what really kind of gets me is this Renaissance Fair. What the Renaissance Fair used to be about was people dressing up, enjoying, the Lord of the Rings and the knights and the chivalry and watching shows and all that. It has gotten to be such a money grab. And, the experience, and then to try and eat, lines and lines and lines. And, of course, the food was exorbitant in terms of cost. And I get, everybody needs to make money. And these people that work these Renaissance fairs, God bless them, this is the only income they have. But when you throw all this on top of each other, I mean, this weekend ended up being a really expensive weekend. And the reason why you go to these fairs, the reason why you go to these events is because you're trying to not spend a lot of money and you're trying to enjoy the day. You're trying, that's what I love about watching sports, because you tell everybody you do a potluck, bring everybody over, have the kids play, have the game going on in the background. You can make a day of it without spending a lot of money. So you'd think, I'm going to go to the Renaissance Fair. It's going to be cool. It's going to be an experience. I mean, by the time you bought tickets and food, we're talking hundreds of dollars. And that ruins it for everybody. The Renaissance Fair cannot be just a rich person's day. Disneyland has gotten ridiculous. I told you guys I was looking for a room to go Wednesday, drive in Wednesday night and be at the park on Thursday. Disneyland Hotel was $5,290 a night. And I posted that picture on Facebook and Twitter. No lie. And then I looked at some of the cheaper motels. King's Inn was $1,100. What? What are these people doing? Not to mention it's about $200 a ticket. Disneyland is now for rich people. It's not for middle income. And then I live where we have the WNBA and Go Aces, well done, winning. And we have the Raiders. We have the Golden Knights. We have the Aviators. We have. Why are these? Luckily, the Aviators it's more reasonable, but the locals can't enjoy. It costs an arm and leg. It costs so much money just to enjoy the sports and support your team. That's wrong. And these money grabs are ridiculous. And just throwing more insult to injury is the stupid tow stuff. And you don't see where the tow truck is. They shut their lights, they hide, and even if it's a couple blocks away. And then they have a scout, and then they probably say, okay, all right, get them. So just be careful. You know, if you were always able to park on a field or park somewhere before, careful. 1-877 Doc Daliah, don't go away.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did, and just maybe someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Daliah, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So a very common question I get is from individuals who are surprised that their job is going to do drug testing. How long do they have to get the drug out of their system? And what can they do to facilitate that? And I'm telling you right now, there are no products or anything like that that I would even suggest that has any sort of reliability or safety for something like that. And you know, if you did drugs, they're going to show up at the test. The tests now are really, really good. the days of, well, I'm going to drink just a lot of water and I'm going to, no, because your kidneys concentrate. Remember, your body wants water. You could try diluting your urine, but that could cause medical issues. And if they see diluted urine, that's a red flag. So you're trying to drink a lot of water such that your kidneys are only passing water. Now these tests are really able to pick things up. So just to kind of review what the time frame is, it really depends on the drug. And it also depends on the testing. I mean, a hair follicle test, wow. I mean, yeah, if you use marijuana, that could be in your hair for 3 months. Now, but if it's a urine test, roughly, they say alcohol will be in your system, or the urine test will pick it up if you've had alcohol within 12 hours. If you take amphetamines, speed, 2 to 3 days for typical use, but if you're on them extensively, even longer. If you take benzodiazepines, depending on if it's like a short term Ativan or Klonopin versus like Valium, which is more longer term, benzodiazepines, they could be in your system for up to a month. Cocaine. If you use cocaine heavily, it could be weeks, it being in your urine test. If it was a one-time deal, maybe a few days. Heroin and other opioids, at least a few days. Now, it does have a half-life. They do have half-lives, and some of them are shorter acting, but longer acting could be longer. And then marijuana, the THC component. If you're a casual user, it could be in your urine test for up to a week. If you're a chronic user, it could be there for about a month. Now, sometimes companies will do blood tests. And blood tests have even higher specificity than urine tests. Cocaine, they could pick up within 12 hours. Opioids, they could pick up, obviously, within a day or two. And then marijuana in the blood. Now, in the blood, it's interesting, marijuana, it might last only a few days in the blood test. Well, why? Well, because blood, it's not like hair or other tissues where it could collect. And so your blood test, because some people are like, well, blood test is better for me because that it's not as chronic. It won't pick it up if I've used, let's say, the drug days before. Yeah, but the concentration that it could pick up on may be stronger. So it's kind of hit or miss. So what do? You have a job. You want a job. You want to get a commercial driver's license. You want to work for a company. And then you come to find out that marijuana is a no-no. And this is something that a lot of people struggle with. Just because certain states legalized marijuana doesn't mean you can't get fired. I mean, it's still considered federally an illicit substance and under the influence. And so people are so shocked. They're like, but it's marijuana is legal where I live. Well, just like alcohol. If somebody wanted to know if you drink alcohol and test you, or you can't have alcohol on the job. And I know there's a big difference between on the job and it being in your system, but marijuana is a little different because it could be in your system for a long period of time. So, I really want to help people who want to work. Okay, I mean, I don't want people working high, but I definitely want to assist people in getting their job back. So I'm not telling you how to pass a drug test, but there's a few things you need to do. First and foremost is get documentation from a medical provider. If you are taking marijuana or doing gummies or whatever because of a medical condition, then get documentation of that medical condition. What we are seeing is that the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, allow, shall we say, modifications and accommodations, accommodations, depending on your medical condition. So let's say you have insomnia and you are at risk of being addicted to sleeping pills. And you notify your doctor saying, look, for sleep, this is what I'm using, but I would like your recommendation. Or, is that safer than other sleeping aids? Now, most doctors are not going to say marijuana is safe for, that they would tell you, let's work on sleep. Let's get you into some therapy. Let's check you for sleep apnea. But you having a doctor's note and showing that you were in the process of talking to that medical provider and you're treating an issue could provide you some protection. I obviously don't use the drug. I mean, the drug tests are going to be coming back. And I think we're going to be seeing them more and more. Why? Because of liability. And I told you this. I told you that, legalizing marijuana, which is something I voted for in my neck of the woods, because I wanted police freed up, from not having to, they could deal with the more, serious crimes. I wanted us to be able to study it. So we had another alternative, for people in chronic pain, because I thought they were going to, ridiculously restrict access to pain medicines by blaming doctors for the fentanyl crisis, and then, just to learn about it and to see what medicinal applications are there. Well, one side effect of that is, fewer people want to go to work. You're like, I remember being late for work, how you would panic that you would be late for work because you could lose your job. Now we just don't seem to have people panic too much about losing their job these days. So like, ain't no thing but a chicken wing. I'm good. And so many employers are a little frustrated because some of their employees aren't coming back to work. So they want to know, is this a marijuana user, who might be more prone to calling out or sleeping in? I understand Ted, that movie seemed to really over stereotype. Most people who use marijuana casually are going to make it to their job, but that's a way for them to screen and see if it's going to be somebody who calls out. And then another thing is liability. So even though marijuana is legal, they do not want doctors and nurses using marijuana and having it in the system, because if anything does go wrong, and you fail a drug test, that's on them. So many industries will not allow you to use, and it's a question that keeps coming up. Does my surgeon use pot? And is anybody checking them? And how do we know it's not at a level that could be affecting their reaction time? And so most hospitals, especially for privileges, they're just like, no drugs. I don't care how legal it is. Now, do doctors drink alcohol on occasion? Of course. Do doctors use drugs? I'm sure there's a lot of doctors that do use marijuana. But they're based on where you work, not supposed to. And it's so ubiquitous now that we take it for granted. But hearing people panic because they're going to be possibly failing their drug test, my advice is, 1, try not to use it. 2, get at least a doctor's note, that can provide you some sort of protection. And then if you are using it for a medical condition, start getting a paper trail on that, and find something better and safer, because most likely you're not going to be able to, even if you do get the job, continue to use the drug. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon, or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.